So I've now seen the last episode of Rick and Morty Season 7, and it's more or less what I said it was going to be, but maybe in a better way. So if you don't remember or haven't seen my last Rick and Morty video, I did question what this episode was going to be about, and I assumed it was just going to be another episodic episode since we already did all the story in the middle of this season, so there was nothing really for this last episode to conclude, to wrap up, and at least I'm kind of free to do whatever they want. And that they did by giving us an episode surrounding the concept of fear in these characters. Rick and Morty, as shown in the beginning of this episode as well as the whole journey throughout this series in general, are typically not afraid of anything because they've seen everything and anything they could possibly see. They've been through a whole bunch of situations that they didn't have to put themselves in, but they did. So what could they possibly be afraid of? This kind of reminds me of the Toxins episode. It's a way for the writers to kind of figure out what these characters are about, to figure out what drives Rick, what drives Morty, and doing that with the concept of fear on the mind. I kind of like that. And the whole concept surrounds this hole. They met this guy at the bar. The guy told them to take them to Denny's, so they did. They found out about this fear hole in the bathroom, so they went to check it out. But this fear hole did seem fishy, so maybe they didn't want to check it out. Maybe they didn't want to know what was going on. So they laugh about it, joke about it, walk out, but then Morty goes and jumps in anyway. And then Rick has to follow behind and jump in after him. And this is where it gets kind of trippy, kind of Rick and Morty-y. We've seen this similar concept happen in a lot of episodes, honestly. The train episode I mentioned before, and a different one would be the one where they had to fix the timeline or something, where they were just like multiple variants of them because they both kept choosing different options. There was also an episode a couple seasons ago where there were a bunch of Ricks and Mortys going after each other. It was also really weird, and I also really liked that episode. But to get back on track, once they get down to the bottom of this hole, they fight some monsters and jump out of this hole. And then the whole concept of this episode is, did you actually escape the hole or did you not? And for the whole time it's seeming like maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But then when they go home, Diane shows up with a dying Rick at her side, and now she's in this world with everybody and has to reaccumulate herself with the family. What the fuck is going on? We just got explained a couple of episodes ago that this shouldn't happen because all traces of her in this multiverse thing has ceased to exist. So obviously they're in a hole still, right? So now the whole concept is, well, maybe this is Morty's fear. Morty's fear is for Rick to move on, possibly. But in our heads, we're thinking, the audience and Morty himself, this is about Rick. This is Rick's fear. Rick is afraid of letting go. He's afraid of getting reattached to Diane and having to leave her again, or for something bad to happen again. And I just love this for a concept of an episode, to explore this side of Rick, to explore his more fun or romantic kind of side. I actually don't know if this is a real interpretation of how Diane is. We'll talk about that later. They get along kind of good. It starts off kind of rocky, but they get along really well, to the point where it starts worrying Morty because Rick is literally dying in front of his eyes. Something about the fear hole sucking the life out of you, drinking your fear juices or something. I don't know. So Morty has to quickly hurry up and figure out what his fear is so he can help Rick escape. And that he does, and they end up having to leave Diane behind, and they escape the hole. Or did they? This triggers a whole event, a whole multitude of questions of, did they go in the hole? Did they not? Are they still in the hole? Are they not? Should they even be worrying about it at this point? Maybe the whole fear of uncertainty is what's going on here. So they try to live their lives. They live a long fucking time. We just get a weird montage of like their whole life happening, and then Morty getting scared because it looked like his dad, and oh, they're still in the hole this whole time. And it's not until Rick says something where Morty figures something out. Rick never jumped in the hole with him. This whole thing has been his fear. His fear is being dependent on Rick, for Rick to always be there to help him out of his life, to help him out of all these struggles and stuff. But he's not there. It's been just him this entire time, and he's just realized that. For a concept of an episode, I really like this because, like I've been saying, since that Rick Prime episode happened, it has focused on Rick a lot less. So having this episode pretend like it's gonna be a normal Rick and Morty episode, and it's like, no, we've actually just been focusing on Morty this entire time. This has been really a Morty focused episode. It's really interesting to see, and I'm really curious about where they're going to take Rick and Morty next. Because if Rick keeps getting further and further into the background, it is just more or less the driving force for a plot to go, but he's not really the main focus. What stories are they gonna tell? Are they gonna tell more Morty focused stories? Are we gonna get more Morty and Summer stuff like we got a couple of episodes ago? Are we gonna get something with Jerry and Beth in it maybe? We haven't had a Beth episode in a long time. We did have a Rick and Jerry episode earlier this season, so I guess he doesn't need to. It just opens up the world for a whole lot more possibilities, but it'd also be weird to not have any more Rick focused stuff. So I hope it's just kind of a little story they're telling for the time being until something crazy does happen and Rick does take more of a focus within it, but I'm willing to let it ride. I'm willing to let it slide and just see where it goes. At the end, when Morty does mention Diane to him, you're kind of afraid of, oh god, Rick's just going to jump in and see what it's about, but he doesn't. He has no interest in seeing Diane again if she's not real, which makes sense because he didn't really have any empathy for when he saw the robot when Rick Prime made of Diane's face. And that's kind of why I mentioned earlier that I'm not sure if that's actually her personality or not, because that wasn't Rick in there this whole time, so who knows how Diane acts. Definitely not Morty, or I don't know, maybe the Fear does know how Diane act, then the Fear Hole kind of put up their version because they know her, I guess. I'm not sure. But other than that, there's not much really to say about this episode. I kind of do wish Rick jumped in, but I guess it has to be a very longer episode if that did happen. I don't want to see what makes Rick tick. I don't want to see what he's afraid of now. Is he afraid of finding Diane again? Is he actually afraid of happiness like the Fear dude said in Morty's Fear? Is he afraid of losing Morty? Does he actually care for Morty? I'd genuinely like to know. I know we kind of saw some of that in the Toxins episode. I think that leaves a lot to tell as well, but I'm really happy with the story that we got right here. And with that being said, what are your opinions on the final episode of Rick and Morty Season 7? Did you want more from this episode? Did you not? Did you want more from this season in general? Were you surprised that the Rick Prime stuff happened in episode 5 and we've just been kind of episodic going around and stuff up until this point? It's kind of what you would have expected, honestly speaking. I'm fine with it. I'm super fine with it. I'm just here for the ride at this point. Yay ride, let's go. As long as they give us some interesting concepts as this one, I'm completely happy with it. But with that being said, I'll see each and every one of you around next time. Okay, goodbye.